The 1920s were a very important time period in history and changing the world and shaping it for what we know today. There are many events and laws and things that occurred to kind of help pave the path and blueprint what we know the world is today and how we go about things and just how we go about our everyday lives. One thing in the 1920s that was discovered was insulin. Insulin was discovered by Charles H. Best and J.J.R. McLeod. I think I said that right. So insulin is a vital hormone in your body that helps regulate your blood sugar. You cannot live without it. It is very important. And when your body is unable to form that and make that, you can develop diabetes, and it can be lethal. You can die from, the side effects that come with having diabetes. So insulin was discovered in 1921. It was purified, so if we're able to, people would actually take it in 1921 by James B. Collip. That's when it was purified and perfected, I would say. It was used for the first time January 11th, 1992 to treat diabetes. Like I said, diabetes is deathly if you don't have the medicine for it. So in creating this and having this medicine saved thousands of lives. It saved lives back then. It continues to today. Another thing is the 19th Amendment that happened in 1919 is when it was written, but it wasn't ratified until 1920. So the 19th Amendment is the right of citizens of the United States vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. This means that regardless of your gender, you can vote. You have that right to vote, and they can't deny you that right because of your sex. So that was a big part of history. People or women have protested and marched and striked to help fight against women's suffrage. So that changed the world and shaped it for what it is today. You will see women fight for basic rights and things like that today. That paved that way for women to be able to do that. Lastly, we have penicillin. Penicillin was discovered by Alexander Fleming. It was accidentally discovered. So one day he was in his lab and he was observing bacteria under a microscope. And it was actually mold that he discovered it. So what comes from mold, the substance that grows from mold, can fight off that bacteria. So he discovered that penicillin comes from mold. I know that's kind of gross, but that's what it comes from. He discovered that it attacks that bacteria like strep, and that basically opened up the way or the era for antibiotics too. It wasn't used or sold and taken by anybody until later on throughout the years. It was 20 years later before people took it, but it was discovered in the 1920s. And if you've ever been sick and if you've ever needed an antibiotic, the most common one that you'll hear of is penicillin. That's what, every time I'm sick and I go to the doctor and they offer me something first, which I'm allergic to, but they offer it first as penicillin. So that helped tremendously in the 1920s and developed it into today. There were many things that happened and shaped the way in the 1920s for what we're able to do now. Women have a voice. They're able to do basic human rights just like everybody else today. In the 1920s, whenever those women protested and marched, it opened up that door and made it, just gave us a voice and allowed us to be able, we were able to get that 19th Amendment, so now we can vote, and what's stopping us in the future from fighting for rights and doing the same thing. Same thing with insulin and penicillin, it's life-saving. The discoveries changed what we know today. From the 1920s, changed what we know today, and the impact could have been very different with insulin and penicillin if it had not been discovered. So the 1920s played a very important role in what we know of the world today, and what we changed our mindset of what we can do and can accomplish for the future.